Hey, all you beautiful people out there. Welcome to GaysideStories, bringing you some LGBT focused discussion we can all relate to because we're all just people. John Legend told y'all gay, straight, trans, bi, everything else under the sun, we are still just people, and we're here to talk about it. I'm your host, Trillificent. As always, you guys can check out GaysideStories.com for more information. You can interact with me on social media. I'm Gayside Stories on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. TheGaysideStories.tumblr.com, or you can always email me with any of your questions, comments, concerns, anything of that nature at GaysideStories@gmail.com. Make sure you guys are also subscribing to the show if you're not already on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Acast, TuneIn, or Stitcher. I am everywhere where your ears need to be. Please do me a favor and rate the show 5 stars on iTunes, please. And leave some comments on SoundCloud. I like to read those as well. You know, it helps to see you guys and your comments as you're listening. And make sure that you're also sharing this podcast with others, because sharing is caring. And that's how we grow. That's how we reach a bigger audience. And that's how we can keep the conversation going. So with that being said, Pride Month, you guys, is coming to a close. But I could not end this great month, although, you know, with all of the all of the smears that are on the month, the Pride Month is still a great month. I could not end it without having this next special guest on the show. So, guest, if you would be so kind as to introduce yourself.
Hi, beautiful people. I am Lyric. I am InfamousBelle all over the place. InfamousBelle.
Come on, spelling.
I'm InfamousBelle all over the place. Any sort of social media you want to find me on, you know, if you have any single friends, you know, have them look me up.
Come on.
I mean,
listen, closed mouths don't get fed. Hey, okay. That's it. And that's it. Amen. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. I know we talked about it a while ago, so I'm glad that we finally were to schedule it. And also thank you for being such a huge supporter of the show since practically the beginning. Like, you've been there in the trenches, and so it's only right that I have you on to have a conversation and just, you know, do our thing. You know what I mean?
And you made it absolutely so easy to support. I'm telling you, this is one of my favorite podcasts. I listen weekly.
Thank you.
Child, I'm there.
Thank you so much. All right, now that we've, you know, fangirled over each other and gushed, let's move on to the first segment. So, this week in school and life. My school and life this week is a little mushy. It's really words of encouragement, and that's both giving and receiving, because you never know who could use some positivity from you, or just in general, you never really know what people are dealing with, what they're going through. So check on people, you know, send them. I mean, I make it easy on myself because I don't have a lot to give. Like, my resources, my emotional and mental resources are limited because I am human. And so sometimes my checking on people and just reaching out and sending those words of encouragement it could literally be as simple as just sending a heart emoji to somebody. Lyric, I do that to you pretty often. I check on you on Facebook and make sure everything's good with you. You know,
I was just getting ready to say that. You do that all the time.
You know,
I can't do nothing but appreciate that. I love that.
So, and also, for me, over the past few weeks, I've been getting a lot of encouragement and kind words from the podcast, and also, on the outlines. Like I said, the interest in the show and guests and everything has been so overwhelming. I'm so grateful and humbled by it. So I've been trying to crank out a lot of stuff. I've been, you know, I do a whole outline when I have a guest on. I mean, I do an outline for every show, but when I have a guest on the show, I share that with them. And, you know, getting kind words of, I think someone, you know, I sent them to them and they're like, this is so professional. And I was like, now here my ass was thinking I was doing the bare minimum. And you hit me back like, this is so professional and so well thought out. I think last week I had Kevin Dwayne from the Outline podcast, and he said something similar. And I was just like, wow, like, people really fucking with this. So, and my friend Bree, shout out to Bree. There's Mrs. Bree on Twitter, because I bounce so many ideas off of her. She's always welcoming and she always helps me out. You know, I share some outlines with her and she's like, oh, well, you should do this, or I had a thought about this. So those kind words, those words of encouragement, they mean a lot. You know, take the time to do that for people. And again, it, like I said, it doesn't have to be a lot. Like I said, I'm good for sending an emoji or like a meme, like my friend Nikki. If we haven't spoken in a couple days, you know, I send her a funny meme and we'll laugh, and I know everything is good.
That's my favorite part of Wednesday, is getting it your hump day meme.
Yes. So what's your schooling life for the week?
My schooling life has been gifts to myself, and the gift that I've given myself this week has been time. I have recently, as you know, I've recently gone through a breakup and moving out and being on my own. And it was a 7-year relationship, and I literally had to give myself time to be alone. I haven't given myself that time because me and my ex are still pretty amicable, and I don't know if this is the end for us, but this just might be a next step in where we're going. And I like to have that hope, but I'm not holding my breath for it. But I had to give myself some time. Like, okay, I need to be alone, center my thoughts, sleep in my bed alone, be by myself, be in my apartment, which is amazing. I love it here. The only thing I hate is that my neighbor's living room is above my bedroom, so when they get up, I'm up. Yeah, it's a lot. And then they got cats that be, for whatever reason, these heavy-footed ass cats just be running up and down the ceiling all day, or running up and down the roof all day. I'm like, God damn.
Listen, these cats, because my cat is locked up right now while I record, because when he hears me speaking and it's not to him, when I tell you that little cat nigga turns into like a little Power Ranger, he is in here doing cartwheels and flips and running up the walls, and I'm like, any other time you would be in your bed minding your feline business, but now because I'm on the phone, or you hear me talking, or I'm trying to record the podcast, you see dead people and you in here doing laps like you are in a Kentucky Derby or something. And I'm like, no, sit your cat ass down somewhere.
Exactly. These cats upstairs be running around like they got work to do. They're getting ready for work.
These cats, man, I tell you, can't live with them. Can't kick their asses out and just, I mean, you can, but well, I can not. Anyway, let me not even go down that before I get some animal rights warrior in my damn mentions. Yeah. You can't do that to that cat. Look, you mind your business. All right. So let's move on to the come quick section. I don't have much. I saw one thing that stuck with me from last week, and that was Caitlyn Jenner being Caitlyn Jenner. And we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but Caitlyn Jenner, the story that I saw, so she's facing criticism after making an ill-timed joke while speaking at the College Republican National Committee's convention on last Friday. Mm-hmm. She was asked by the event moderator about the shooting that wounded House Majority Whip Steve Scalise, and injured several others during baseball practice. At first, Jenner condemned the attack by Trump-hating liberal activist James. Good luck with that last name.
Yeah, good luck.
But then she said, fortunately, this is quote, fortunately, the guy was a really bad shot. Liberals can't even shoot straight. And you know what? I want you to go first. You give us your thoughts first.
Child, my thoughts on this just pretty much solidify everything I think about Caitlyn Jenner, and how she still just cannot. She just still refuses to see the privilege that she has of being able to just kind of say things like this. And like, no, she has literally nothing to lose.
No.
She literally has nothing to lose. Like, she's gonna be paid. I don't understand where she's getting money from, but she's getting paid regardless. And she ain't got nothing to lose. So, she just refuses to see how ignorant she is.
And I just... So I saw this, and my first thought was, so Caitlyn has her size 15 pumps in her mouth yet again.
Right?
I have never, I mean, I have, but her, it's every time you hear about Caitlyn Jenner, it's some bullshit, and it's like, what is your malfunction? You want to, I would love to, and I said what I said coming up, so you can be mad about it if you want to, but I just really feel like we need to like shift, click, delete on Caitlyn, because I'm just like, why are you here? Because you are not helping. You're not even helping yourself at this point.
No,
What is
it
your
really isn't.
What is your function? What is your purpose, ma'am? Like, are you like? Did you go through all this just to sit up here and be a complete imbecile, all in the media? Every time you open your mouth, it's bullshit, and you constantly getting your goddamn wig snatched off your head, and then you sitting there mad because you're getting your wig snatched. But what
She
do
got
you
her whole wig
expect?
snatched off her head for the whole seasons of her show.
I didn't even watch that show, but I heard about her getting her whole, like, I mean, Caitlyn's out here getting her edges plucked with tweezers. That's how brutal it is. And she continues being a complete and utter dumbass. So, with all the love and honor and respect that we can muster here at Gayside Stories, Caitlyn Jenner, shut your ass up and sit the fuck down. Go get you some business.
You gave her a lot of respect, because I surely was about to be like, girl, if you don't get your ass out my face, that face has sunken since that damn, what was the cover that you said? Vogue,
the Vanity Fair or Vogue or whatever one. Listen, Adobe, they had, anyway, we don't even need to do that. So, that's the end of the come quick section. I came. So let's move on to the main topic. So, as you guys know, or maybe you don't know, Gayside Stories is not just about gay niggas. I mean, I know I'm a gay nigga and gay man, and I've had, all of my guests have been gay men. But that's not the intent of the show. The show is to include everyone. So, scheduling and everything as far as getting more people and different people in the community on board. So the reason why, or one of the reasons why, because, I wanted you on the show because we're friends. But I also wanted you on the show because you are transgender. Mm-hmm. And I felt like there is a conversation to be had. I mean, there's conversations to be had about everything. So I wanted to talk to you about a few things relating to transgender women and that whole facet of the community. So okay. We have a couple of things that, I usually break these up into little mini subsections of the main topic. But I wanted to start off with you, just talking a little bit more about yourself and your journey. Like I said before, feel free to share what you want. You don't need to get into all of your personal business or anything of that nature. But just to kick us off a little bit, if you want to talk a little bit about your own journey.
So my journey, I am from California. So thankfully for that, I have been blessed in the way that we're definitely more of a liberal state. Not, and I'm not. That's in no way, shape, or form saying that don't shit happen here in California and I'm just safe. No, but thankfully I live in a state where things are a little bit more liberal. The white people tend to be a little bit more liberal here.
Right.
I was born and raised in California, Northern California to be exact. And I think when I say that, people tend to think, oh, that's just the Bay Area. No, there's a whole little subsection of Northern California that's not the Bay Area and all that other jazz. But I'm from Northern California. I've been legally transitioning for almost 10 years now. But outside of that, it's been, me experimenting with my look and different things like that, because that's how a lot of people tend to start out. Particularly a lot of trans women tend to start out is with experimenting with their look, and how they're gonna how they want the world to perceive them. And so that's what started out for me, and that has doing all that from the time probably since I was a little girl probably like 10 years old to up until now, that has definitely shifted my lens and how I view things and how I view people. My dad has always told me I have a very observant eye. It's because I've always been aware of my surroundings, because I know how people are, and I don't mess with that. So, um, it's been a very, I've led definitely a very interesting life as far as, transitioning and everything. Um, and I'm glad to share a piece of it here with you.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for that. But let's get into the meat and potatoes. So the first thing I want to dive a little bit more into visibility. So we're gonna talk about, I'm talking about this bitch again, but
That thumb of a bitch.
yeah, some bitch. So first, how do you feel about the more visible trans characters that we have? Characters, that's a bad word. Trans people that we have out now, like your Caitlyn, because Caitlyn Jenner is a character, and I was reading her name first. That's why that came out that way. But your Caitlyn Jenner, your Laverne Cox, your Janet Mock, etc. Like, how do you feel about the visibility of those women, or any other women that I may not have mentioned?
They definitely are as far as Janet Mock and Laverne Cox, they definitely are a very, they're a very powerful form of visibility for us, just because of how they speak and how they are able to speak, and how they're able to even defend other sex. Because, transgender is just an umbrella term, for other people who fall into it. There's like several, subcategories that I'm not even privy to. But how they can even speak and defend the rights of others who may necessarily fall under this, category. Now, as far as Caitlyn, she just happens to be someone who's trans and dumb. That I can't.
And rich.
Right? All, how they say, all my skin folk, I'm a kin folk. I want to find a trans equivalent to that, but I'm having a hard time right now. So she could just, child, she could just pop out her two front teeth and go sit somewhere and be a hillbilly with money, because that's all she's doing right now.
I mean, to give her smidget of credit, I mean, just her being her and being her publicly, it has lended a big eye onto transgender women and the struggle and things. And she, every now and then, like, I want to say like one out of 10 times she gets it right.
Absolutely.
And she says something that highlights maybe struggles that trans women of color face. But overall, the overarching theme of Caitlyn Jenner is a resounding hell to the goddamn no. Like,
a broke clock is right twice a day.
That's it.
So,
come on with the sayings.
So that is what she gives me.
Caitlyn,
that is what I would give her. Her show definitely has touched, has touched people, and she definitely has been a not necessarily a spokesperson. Well, yeah, that would be the best way I can describe it, because she does come from that family, and they are, I could say whatever I could want about the Kim Kardashians, about the Kardashians and the Jenners, but them people know how to be spokespeople. They know how to get to the money.
Yeah,
so
they know how to be in the spotlight, and they they definitely get to the coins.
And that's what Caitlyn did. And through her show, thankfully, we were able to meet other women of different intersections of life that we may not have had the opportunity, like Angelica Ross. And Miss Jen, I cannot think of her last name, but I love her to pieces and shreds. They're on this show called, what's the name? The name of the show escapes me right now, but I'll remember. Watch, I'm going to remember as soon as this is over. I'm going to be irritated with myself. But she's definitely, with giving them a platform with being on her show.
Right. And being there to snatch that wig.
Yes.
Caitlyn Jenner is what I like to call stuck on stupid and sliding on silly, and I just don't know if there's any hope for her. But moving right along, so my next question is, what are your thoughts on the current visibility in the media for transgender people? Now, not necessarily the actual celebrity figures, but in the media, like in the movies, on TV, different types of things like that that we consume. How do you feel about the visibility for trans people there?
I feel like lately um, it's been, it itself has been in transition because we've
Mm.
gone from just being on Maury or Jerry Springer or a prostitute in the background of a show or, something like that to now where we're leading in our own shows and we're leading in our own movies, like Transparent and like Her Story, which was the show I was trying to think of, which is on YouTube. It's really, really good. If you are into dating shows and romantic types of scenes and everything, I would probably say go watch Her Story on YouTube. But it's definitely been in transition as well as the conversations around trans people in being visible, and we're definitely being seen in a more pleasant light. Aside from my sisters who have been, murdered
Right.
and bloodied and blackened and bruised in recent years, we are definitely moving towards more of a positive and more of a normalcy of how we are being viewed as people.
Okay. Um, I agree. It's getting better. You know, it's a work in progress. One thing though that I personally would like to see is I just would like to see cisgender people stop playing trans people in stuff. Like we
Oh
we
yeah, absolutely.
we don't need that anymore. If Laverne Cox and some of the other trans people out there have not proven is that trans people are just as talented as everyone else. Like there's no difference in talent just because they're transgender. So let transgender people play transgender roles. We don't need straight people playing gay, and we don't need straight people or cis people playing transgender. Like
And we
that
don't need the same four transgender people trying to play everybody
that too, you
because we
know.
don't. They can't tell all the stories about the different intersections of our lives.
Right. And I also am looking forward to a time where we can have transgender people just be characters on the show, and their transition or them being transgender is not the whole purpose of the show. Like, like the I Am Kate, was that the name of her show?
Yeah, I believe so.
Shows like that where they focus on that, those are good. But I mean, I just want to I want to get to a point where we turn on ABC and the newest, Shondaland dramedy or whatever has a trans character, and their transness is not the sole purpose of them. Like they're just there because if it's
It's
a
secondary to their storyline.
right, if it's Scandal, if the press secretary just happens to be trans,
Hmm.
her focus, if it's a woman or it could be a man, their focus would be I'm the press secretary, and their transness would be secondary. It's kind of the way that they do with Cyrus. Like Cyrus, his whatever his, because he bounces around, but his homosexuality is a minor detail to his overall character. It's a part of his character, and it comes into play when it's good,
Exactly.
but he's not there to be the token gay man, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. And I
Hmm.
want to get to a point where we can turn on the TV and we see trans people on shows and in movies, and they're not just the token trans person. You know what I mean?
Exactly, exactly. And that's where coming in to create our own things. Like I mentioned earlier, that the Her Story show, that is an amazing, amazing show. And also, they just canceled this show about transgender models. Even though the show was about them being transgender models, it also showed more of them um, being able just to kind of like how they would deal with different things, like I guess quote unquote normal people would deal with, like dating and how they navigate the world of modeling and how they're trying to get work and competitiveness and things like that. So I
Right.
think when we have those things, though, when we have those things and we're interested in those stories, we have to support those stories as much as we can.
Right. And that goes with all things in the community and with blackness or whatever ethnicity or race.
Yeah.
Like, you know, eventually, hopefully, maybe not in our lifetime, we can get to a point where it's not so necessary that we have to tell our own story. We have to do our own thing. We have to open our own stores and create our own spaces. But for now, that is how it is. And I agree. We need to do that, and we need to support it when it's done.
Mm-hmm.
So my last question under this one is: are there any? I mean, I could say trans people, but maybe trans women that you specifically look up to.
Definitely, I would say someone whose story mirrors mine a lot is Janet Mox. We definitely have shared experiences between both of her books, and I'm listening. I do audiobooks a lot, and I'm listening to her audiobook right now, which is Surpassing Certainty. I'm plugging all kinds of stuff.
And
um,
we ain't getting no coin, but that's okay.
right? I need to. Right? Anyways, I she definitely her story definitely mirrors mine a lot more. So she's someone I definitely look up. Which she's definitely changed my life, and I don't even think she knows this. And I don't know if she'll ever know this, but she's definitely changed my life in the way that I view things because someone was able to tell my story and give me words and give me verbiage that I would have not had before. And there's nothing I can ever probably do in this life or the next one to be like, hey girl, I appreciate you, sis.
Right.
So that's definitely my personal role model when it comes to how I navigate the world as a Black transgender woman.
Awesome. Have you checked out her podcast?
Oh yes, I listened to the Miss Tina. I'm catching up on the one that she just had with the little girl from Girl Meets World on it. I can't think of her name, but I know it's Rowan.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with her, but I know which episode you're talking about.
I'm catching up on that one, and I know she has Maxine Waters on the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
I
definitely excited about that.
Yeah, it's definitely on my rotation that I listen to every week. You know, I was on the fence at first because when I saw that Lena Dunham was the executive producer, I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, girl."
Mm-hmm.
But then she reeled me in because she had Miss Tina on the first episode, so I was like, "Well, of course I have to listen because it's Miss Tina." I mean,
Absolutely. If you ain't gonna listen to nobody, you gonna listen to Miss Tina.
yeah, I mean, and that's not even, from being a Beyonce. I mean, that's being a Miss Tina stan because Miss Tina's everything. So,
Exactly.
shout out
And
to you, Janet Mott.
right.
Sorry,
And
go
you
ahead.
can't deny that Miss Tina has given the world a true gift.
Gifts, plural.
She knows what she's doing. She got it.
Exactly. All right.
So I'm gonna listen to her when she talks.
Indeed. And laugh at her corny jokes.
Right? 'Cause she's
Um,
just so adorable.
she is. She is. Her and Mr. Richard are so adorable.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So let's move on. We're going to shift the conversation to this part I call the war on trans.
Mm-hmm.
So my first question here, what are your thoughts on all of like the bathroom bills and all of these kind of transgender specific legislation that's been popping up in the recent years, especially since, the Cheeto in Chief has taken office?
Oh, the orange Listerine flavored looking ass bitch.
Yeah. That.
I so as far as the bills that have been, I guess would be the lack of better term, strikes against me and other transgender people, is people tend to think that trans people only come in one mold of trans, and you're going to be able to know that that person is trans no matter what. And it just kind of makes me think of, like, if you minded your business, the world would go around a lot faster, because we are in a time where that Mango Mussolini is in office, and he is doing a lot worse than me going to the bathroom and using it is doing. Like, I literally have gone to the bathroom for two things: to pee and to check myself out if I'm giving a look or not. And
Come on, looks.
and right? I mean, because I got to serve my looks. I'm all about my aesthetic, but people are so concerned with things that they don't need to be concerned about. If the bathroom bill was more about protecting women and children, then there would be a law that prevents sexual predators from using these public bathrooms at parks where there are playgrounds,
Right.
or using these or using different facilities, while children are in there.
Right. I agree.
There would be different bills. I mean, granted, I'm no bill writer, and I can't think of the logistics of how that would work, but there would be different things to protect women and children. But people tend to go with their own bias and their own bigotry, and that's where these bathroom bills have generated from, because they have this idea of what transness is and how it works in the world, and they outside of their skewed view of things, they don't have much knowledge of it.
Right. I also think that it's interesting that the bills are always about trans women being in the women's bathroom, but I'm thinking to myself, if it's about safety, then wouldn't the reverse be true? Like, wouldn't you have some concern about trans men being in the men's bathroom? Because we know that men are violent; they're much quicker to anger and resort to violence in their anger and frustration and confusion. So wouldn't trans men be in a whole heap of trouble, because we know you don't know what's going on with a trans woman, as far as her biology, but you typically know what's going on with a cis man. I am much more concerned about trans men forced to use the men's bathroom than I am about trans women being in the women's bathroom and the concern of the women and the children, because men are going men, for lack of a better term, you know what I mean? And you potentially are putting those trans men's lives in danger, because they may not all, trans men run the spectrum just like trans women, so a lot of them, maybe if they're starting in their transition, or even if they've transitioned, they may just be of a smaller frame. Like, I'm of the mindset to think that they are in more danger than the children are in the women's bathroom, because trans women are not down. Nobody's trying to do nothing in the bathroom but pee.
Exactly.
And I think another thing about these laws is, I think that the proponents of these laws, like, your pervert is showing, because I feel like they are putting themselves in those positions, and they're thinking, if I was a trans woman, what would I be doing in the bathroom? And
I'd be going in there trying to see some titties or see some.
Right. Does that make sense?
That speaks again to you how you sexualize children, because
exactly,
who's going in the bathroom thinking, I'm about to see some little ass kids in here? Like, aside from someone who is a pervert.
Right. So I really think that a lot of that's like, your perv is showing, and you need to tuck that in, and you need to work on that. Okay, so the next question that I have is, why do you think that trans people, especially trans women of color, are targeted with so much violence and hatred? What's your personal opinion on that?
It definitely has something to do with the way that I can only speak for how it works in the African American Black community, because that's where I reside, that's where I come from.
Yeah, it's your intersection.
Yeah, exactly. So from what I understand from that is, so like I was explaining to somebody the other day, it's better to be viewed in a lot of the times, not in every aspect of not in every intersection of our society, but in particular aspects of Black culture, as a male, it is better to be viewed as someone who will kill somebody than someone who is, quote unquote, a sissy or has any sort of effeminate ways about them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot better to be viewed in those ways. And I was telling somebody this the other day, like a friend of mine asked me, he said, do you date any Black men? Because, I'm single, so all these little dates I've been going on have been primarily with white men. And it's not necessarily that I don't like Black men. I love Black men. My daddy's a Black man. My brother's a Black man. My cousins and aunts and my cousins and uncles and grandfather, they're all Black men. But Black men don't tend to like me, and that speaks to more of a societal thing in our community, that it's better to be seen as someone who will cause harm than to be seen as someone who has any sort of effeminate qualities.
Right.
We definitely view, and we will view your worth based on your sexuality and how
Yeah.
much you show or hide your sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about that is a lot of the times men tend to think, and it goes different for everybody, but men tend to think that if you mess with a transgender woman or a trans woman, that you're automatically assumed gay. And that's the thing, we assume a lot about people without actually having to know. We put ourselves, like you said, we put ourselves in those shoes, in those situations, and how would they view themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for me, I identify as a heterosexual woman. I deal primarily with heterosexual men. So if you have your hangups about how you are, then that's your business. But that's what it boils down to, is we would rather black men be seen as someone who can hold it down and ain't got no, punk in them, ain't got no sissy in them, ain't got none of that in them, than someone who is comfortable with themselves and any sort of effeminateness that comes with that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
it
sure I
does.
made up a few words there.
Yeah. No, I get it. I agree. And I think also it goes back to that age old saying that is in all of the movies about shit like this and aliens and mutants and stuff like that, is that people fear what they don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And that's inherent in everyone. But I think the problem becomes that you let that fear become irrational to the point where you don't try to understand.
You let that fear guide you.
Right. And fear begets violence, because what we were talking about this before we started recording about Australia and all the things that go bump in the night that could kill you. And your fear is going to transition really. It's going
okay, full circle.
It's going to transition into either fight or flight. You're either going to run or you're going to fight. You're going to fight these creatures and these spiders and whatever the fuck else, or you're going to run. And I think it goes to what you were saying about either, the hypermasculinity of either you're going to fight or you're going to flight, and you're going to be looked down on if you come across a trans woman and you don't fight. If you run away and you let it be and someone finds out. And I think, a lot of that goes to people are more worried about their reputation and what other people think than themselves, and the safety of other. Like, you're more willing to endanger the life or take someone's life as opposed to just being comfortable with yourself and what you like, or just being like, you know what, fuck y'all niggas, or fuck y'all bitches, or fuck whoever. You don't get to dictate what I do with my life. Your opinion on shit does not get to dictate what I do with my life. And I think that it's also kind of a power play, if you will, because it's not always a situation where, I think a lot of people have this, I don't want to say romanticized, because I'm not sure if that's the word, but they have this narrative already in their head of how does it work? When a trans woman is killed by a cisgender man, it must have been that the trans woman was doing something. She was hiding something. He found out, and, she's a liar. So he had every right to do what he did.
Exactly.
And I think that it's just a strike against anything that is different.
What your perceptions of what I have going on, that's literally none of my business. And it literally you should not make it any of my business.
Right. And, again, like you said, it goes back to the hypermasculinity, and that violence is directly linked to that hypermasculinity. You're willing to do whatever it takes to prove that you're masculine, even if that means taking someone's life. And my last thought on that is, I think that a lot of cisgender men feel like trans women are easy targets. I think that there are men out there in the world that just want to kill somebody, and they feel like, a trans woman is easy. I'm not saying that that's the truth, but I think that it is the truth that some of them think that way. I don't think it's always a situation of shit just escalated because of XYZ. I think sometimes that they go out there and they target women of color, trans women, to kill. I mean, shit, they don't... Listen, writers are good at making shit up, but the shit that they make up on SVU, not all of that comes from nowhere. A lot of that shit is stemmed in fact and truth and real life. And we've seen it time and time again. I think that there's a lot of factors that go into it, but I think that's a big one. Like, some people, they just want to kill, and they pick a target and they go after it. It's just like a couple episodes ago when I was talking about the story of the men going on Grindr so that they can kill. I'm not killed. I don't think they killed anyone, but just so they can rob guys. Like, you're straight men, you go on Grindr and you set up a meeting just so you can specifically go and rob people because you feel like they're an easy target.
Exactly.
And I think it's the same thing with trans women in some instances.
And another thing that you kind of just brought up in my mind was when you're physically attacking a trans woman based on what your dealings are with her, you're physically attacking your own insecurities. Yes. You're putting your insecurities on this person, and that's even outside of just being trans. That's even being with men who are with other men. Yep. You're physically attacking. First of all, you're putting your insecurities on them, and once you read your insecurities on them, once you see, the type of person that you feel like you don't want to be, or that you're afraid of that side showing, you then physically feel the need to attack them.
Right. It's like your insecurities personified, and because now it's a quote unquote person, you can put them paws on it. I get what you're saying. I agree. All right. The next question I have specific. And we're changing gears just a smidge, and it's, what issues have you encountered with other sections of the LGBT plus community? For example, gay men being transphobic or things of that nature.
There's definitely a lot of transphobia within that whole spectrum, even within, even from other transgender people who maybe identify in other sex or other intersections of the spectrum. It goes as far as, I've been told before that, you still got that, so you just a gay boy, you just a pretty one, or men who deal with you are gay, and they'll deal, and this is particularly from gay men where I get, if they'll deal with you, they'll deal with me, kind of like,
wow,
vibe thing, and I've had men, gay male friends of mine, who have literally gone after men who I have had some dealing with, because they figure, they'll sleep with you, they'll sleep with me.
Wow, that's so dismissive.
Exactly. And then as far as like from lesbian women, I couldn't date a trans woman, they're not real women, I don't ever like a penis, or things like that, and feeling, and a lot of times people feel like they have access to my body without knowing me. So like, I've noticed even within dating, this goes back to me dating and dealing with heterosexual men and dealing with the LGBT community, where people feel like they can just ask any question they want about my body without knowing me. So they'll ask me, what surgeries have you had?
Are you
post-op?
Kind of like how Wendy Williams did Laverne Cox on her show. Was that Wendy? I think it was Wendy.
Yes, it was. And she handled it very well. She handled it a lot more diplomatically than I would, because I would tell Wendy, girl, you don't want to open the door about talking about anybody's surgeries, because sis, you look so different from than you did from way back when. So let's not go there.
Let's not do that.
Yeah, don't do that to yourself, sis.
Yeah, this ain't the hill you want to die on.
No.
As Jeremy would say from Crown and College.
Fight, girl. And the dog you do have in this fight is going to bite you back. So
indeed. Okay.
You might want to check yourself before you wreck yourself. But, but it definitely, that's been the biggest thing, is that almost like an invalidation of of me being trans, because
even your existence, though.
Exactly.
Like, to just totally erase you and be like, I can get any nigga or any man that you can get. And it's just like, why would you say that to someone? First of all, why is it a competition? Like, why would you make it a competition as a gay man or between you and a trans woman? And then for the lesbian women, it's just the assumptions, everyone. I find it very interesting that I think everyone in the community feels it, someone, whether it's a cis person or whether it's someone else in the community, projecting their ideals and their assumptions onto you. But I think that it's kind of a hierarchy. You know, the way we say, you know, black women are on the bottom of the tier. I feel like trans people and probably trans women in general are kind of on the bottom of the hierarchy of the community. And so you guys get way more of that kind of stuff than I would as a gay man, because I'm a little, you know, gay men are at the top, even though we're the second letter. I mean, everything is about gay men damn near.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can see how that trickles down. And I mean, gay men hate each other. You know, we have, and we're not even talking about all the other intersectionality of, you know, religion and race. So I can see how that would trickle down. But I just find that very curious that you would encounter gay men that would feel like it's some kind of competition between you. But then at the same time, it's not totally surprising, because that is, I mean, I think it's a small sect of the community, but I do know that that's how a lot of gay men operate. You know, they put their worth or they put other people's worth. I think you said something similar, in their sexuality and who they can bag, basically, who they can sleep with. So it's kind of almost like, okay, it's double points if, you know, I take this man from this trans woman. And it's just like, what are you even doing? What are you talking about?
Exactly.
And why are you erasing this person's identity? And why are you fighting over men? Like, what the fuck? It's so trash.
It's enough men out here for everybody to have a piece of whatever.
It really is. And I'm sitting here
heterosexual men are in a rush to put it in anybody's face. Let me tell you that.
Listen, in they butt, in they eye, in they ear canal, like, whew. Anyway, that's you could throw a rock different
and
show.
Hit at least 3 of them and be like, "Hey, come here."
But there's no shortage. I mean, there's no shortage of penis out here. And if we keeping it a buck, you know, for you shallow girls out there, there's no shortage of fine ass men out here. You don't need to do all of that. I just think that that's really interesting. So, you know, so you guys know, there is, you know, for anyone who thinks that the LGBTQ community is all shits and giggles and rainbows and pride flags, we have our struggles and our issues within this community.
Exactly. And we as trans people, we identify on a lot of ends of the spectrum as well. You can be lesbian and be trans, you can be gay and be trans, you can be bisexual and be trans. And I think the reason why even T is even included is just because it's something that is not necessarily goes with the societal roles of your gender, you know, that's being pushed upon you.
Right.
I'm not pushing for anything for not to be included in the LGBT, but, you know, it definitely, I see the validity in us being a part of that, but, you know, it's weird to see how invalid the other letters or the other parts of the acronym that will invalidate us.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They'll quickly, oh, no, not you guys.
Right. I think that, I wonder if that was kind of I'm not even sure what the term is, but I wonder if that came about because the understanding of gender versus sexuality, like, there was a time that, and I mean, there's still a lot of people who feel like they are the same thing. And so that's why the T was added, because I agree. I mean, I get why it's there, but at the same time, you guys can pretty much stand on your own. But when the phrase was coined, I feel like it was at a time where that distinction between gender and sexuality was not as clear as it is now to enlighten people. And that's kind of how that came about. I could be wrong, you know, tweet me if I'm wrong about that, but that's what it feels like. Okay, so my last thing on this, I want to know your thoughts on the Rachel Dolezals of the world and how they're essentially trying to ride the wave of perceived acceptance of trans people with their racial identities.
My thoughts on that is I will fight till the end of me to make sure that anybody who identifies as something that they may not, that necessarily doesn't align with what they were assigned at birth, can have that right to do so. However, I personally sometimes feel that there is a bastardization of that. You know, sometimes people will take that, like, we didn't, like, for instance, the first thing that comes to mind when things like that happen is B. Scott. B. Scott didn't identify as transgender before before B. Scott had this lawsuit going on, you know, and then all of a sudden, oh, well, I'm transgender and I'm going to use that to my advantage and on BET and stuff like that. And I'm like, wait a minute, why didn't, like, you had all this information before? Why is it all of a sudden coming out now that you want to identify as trans? You know, and that's not to invalidate anything that B. Scott has been through, because I don't really know them like that. So, but that's kind of where I see that, like, why? Like, what is it about being oppressed that makes you want to be like, well, I need a piece of that?
Right. That's, yeah, it's strange.
It's just like when white people talk about, oh, racism. Why do you want to be a part of the suppression, sis? You don't
Right.
want these problems.
Right. Like, why do you covet oppression? That is so strange to me. Like,
Exactly.
it is not a good time over here. It is not House Party 3. We are not all over here doing the Running Man and eating chicken wings and having a good time. Like, it's real shit out here. But as far as this, I can't respect anyone who does not want to fight their own fight. Now, with Rachel Dolezal in particular, and I don't want to give her too much shine because,
Ugh.
but with her, I can't respect, like, if this is what you want to do, if this is the hill you want to die on, then by all means, die on. But I don't respect you if you don't want to stand up and fight for yourself. If you want to piggyback on someone else's struggle and try to circumvent the path that you have to walk and the work that you have to do. You know, I liken it to a race where everyone's in this race and you see some people you started late and you see people ahead of you. So, but instead of you continuing at your own pace or speeding up so you can catch up, you take a shortcut so that you can catch up to them.
Exactly.
And it's like, no, sis, you need to do this right. You need to run your own race. You need to do your own work. You need to fight your own battle. And don't try to co-opt anybody else's struggle and their terms for your own selfish gain, because now
And
you
you can
get
be
your
an
wig
ally.
snatched. Right.
There's no harm in being an ally.
Yeah,
But you
but
can't
but
take on,
when you're white, you know,
exactly.
that's
When you're
a
white, you're right. And when you're white, you're white. And Rachel Dolezal, you just need to accept that child, when she said, well, if you can transition, you know, from male to female, why can't you? Because those are two different things, baby girl. That's not how
right.
that works, sis. You could go put on a dashiki weave, a shake and go weave all you want, and call yourself what you want, but we already know what it is, girl.
Right, but that doesn't mean
And
you're gonna understand what we deal with, because gender, it doesn't have the historical connotation that goes with it as it does with being black. And
exactly.
furthermore, that's all fine and dandy, but this has been said over and over again. I think even they said this on the read. You can be black when one of us can identify as white. You
Exactly.
show me where someone is able to transition and say, I'm transracial and, I'm not actually black, I'm white, and are accepted and treated as a white person is treated, then maybe we can talk. But, it's always easy to go from the privileged side to the what do we call, to the disadvantaged side. But
It's easier to see down than it is to see up in this aspect.
right. But we don't get to go up. We don't get to go up. So no. And I think that whole argument of, because I saw a lot of people doing this when the whole Dolezal thing came out, that argument that if you can be transgender then you can be transracial, I think it's just laziness. I think people don't want to do the work. They don't want to read. They don't want to listen, and they don't want to engage their critical thinking if they have it. they don't want to engage and really put some effort and some thought into it. It's just easy to say, because I think people harp on and they get stuck on the part of the term trans, and they feel like, okay, if it's trans, then it means the same thing. And it's like, technically it does mean the same thing, but you have to, whenever you add the second part to it, that's where the differences come in. And transracial, I'm sorry, it's just not a thing. You cannot be transracial in a society that's not post-racial. That's just my opinion.
Exactly.
You know, while we're still getting gunned down just for being in the car with a busted tail light because we're black or, you know, brown, you're not going to tell me that you get to be black because you just choose to.
My gender wasn't handed down to me from my parents. It just was a roll of the dice, and I got what I got.
Right.
You know, I got what my parents assigned to me, and then I chose. I have a path that I walked myself. However, me being black was something that was handed down to me generation. It's generation.
Right.
You know,
and you inherit everything that goes with it.
Exactly. My skin, based on my parents and my skin tone and things like that, I inherit those things from them. You know, and I inherit those things from my ancestors and people who have come before me who have established these things. I didn't inherit anybody's gender.
Right. And my last thought on that is, I think also, to piggyback on what I said about the laziness, I think that a lot of people, because they don't understand the trans experience, they think that it's easy. And so they feel like, okay, it's easy for you to go from male to female or from female to male. So then it's just as easy to go from white to black. And it is easy to go from white to black because you are putting on makeup and a kinky wig. And people discount the struggle of what it is to transition. It's not all shits and, I mean, it's not any shits and giggles from what I understand about the topic. You know, I think that's why part of the reason why they call it an experience, because it is just that. It's not just you wake up one day and be like, okay, I'm a girl today or I'm a boy today. It's drugs. Like, you have to put things into your body, and depending on how you want to look, you have to do things to your body, and it's a lot that goes with that. And I think that people not understanding that it's easy for them to discount and just brush it off and be like, oh, it's easy, so that's why she can trans. You know, we can call anything trans because it's easy for people to transition from one gender to the next, or however you choose to package that. And it's just not the case.
And what really sucks is that the society that we live in relies a lot on beauty privilege, and you know, and so and this is not to take anything away from the role models and the people that we have out there, but a lot of the people that we see out there, particularly trans women, are quote unquote deemed passable, or they look a certain way, or they're able to navigate in the world as a cis person. And I understand that I have this privilege in this aspect where I'm able to now sit in most social circles and be perceived as a cisgender person. And not everybody has that. And that only speaks to a small percentage of who we are as a whole, you know? And because of that beauty privilege, there's a whole ignored aspect of it because we have that beauty privilege, and because we're able to be perceived as normal, quote unquote normal, or passing as cisgender, there's a whole separate aspect of people who are ignored, who maybe not necessarily are read as cisgendered in most certain situations or most social circles. And there's definitely some things that need to be changed about that. Now, I'm not saying, you know, that's not for me to say. That's not for me to take away anything that the aforementioned women like Janet Mock and Laverne Cox have kind of been out there doing, and how they've been kind of doing the footwork in a lot of certain situations. But I can't deny the fact that beauty privilege has helped a lot with that, and that's why people see it as so easy, because
Right.
they see, you look at Janet Mock and she is a gorgeous, beautiful woman, and it just looks so effortlessly to her. She
Right.
doesn't, everything just looks like it's just so, effort. And she's spoken about in her books that, she navigated this world for a very long time as a person who passes cis, and was living a life of stealth, which means, she wasn't necessarily forthcoming about her trans identity. And she had that privilege of doing that. And as much as I love her, that not everybody has that privilege, sis.
Right.
So we need to find ways to find people who can speak for those people.
Right.
Because and that was another reason why I decided to get into advocacy, because, like I said, I fortunately have the privilege of being able to navigate most social situations and be read as cisgendered or passing as what, what it's called. But who's going to argue about the girl who's not so passing? Who's going to argue for the girl who's not so passing?
Right.
Who's going to argue for the person who doesn't? Who's going to argue for the man who's not so passing? Who's going to go to bat for these people?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people tend to deem when you pass that you're doing it the right way. Oh, you're doing this the right way. You're not like that person. You're not like that person over there. They don't look like you. Mm-hmm. And we put a lot of pressure on looks in this society. So we can't deny the beauty privilege is real in this aspect of dealing, when people see, oh, it's easy to transition. No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Some people are just, and I don't even like to use this term because then it gives it validity, but some people just tend to just look a different way than other people. I was going to say luckier, but I'm glad I didn't. They just tend to look tend to look a different way than other people do. Yeah,
everybody's experience is different. Everybody's body is different. Everybody does not. They don't. What's the word that I'm looking for? They don't react to things the same way. Everyone is just different. But I definitely agree. I feel like if there were more prominent trans people that were not so much of, or what people would deem passable, if there were more prominent figures like a Marsha P. Johnson that just look different, mm-hmm. I think that this conversation would be different. And I don't think people would be so quick to try to adopt trans for their own bullshit.
Exactly.
All right, come on, conversation.
Right?
Okay, so this one is a little different. I'm curious about some of the questions that you hate to be asked, or that you kind of hate seeing maybe in the online atmosphere. I think you touched on it a little bit, but if you can, point out or lay out a few of those, I'm curious about those types of questions.
So one question, like I said, I get a lot is, are you post, pre, what you got going on down there?
Mm-hmm.
What surgeries have you had? And it definitely gives people feel like they have a right or access to my body that they don't, that they wouldn't think that they had in any other circumstances, they wouldn't think that I would have. If I came across, or if I didn't tell you that I was trans, would you ask me how black my pussy was, seeing that I'm a black woman?
Wow.
No, you wouldn't ask me that.
Wow.
You wouldn't ask me these questions. That's
mm-hmm.
not the first thing that comes out of people's mouth. Like, I'm sure not most people come up to you and be like, oh, how big is your dick? No one, that doesn't, I mean, I can't say that in the gay community, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But, that's an odd question to ask, and people don't feel like a lot of times people don't feel like they have that access to people's bodies when they don't necessarily tell you, I identify as trans. But once that I tell you that, then what makes you feel like you have that access to my body? That's definitely one question that just grinds my gears.
Yeah. Woo. I think what that is I don't think that people don't feel like they have the right. I think that they do. I think that because most people think that the gender spectrum is just male, female, that they automatically know what's going on with everyone else. So that means I do get to have that right and that access to your body, because now you're going against the grain, and I need to know where to categorize you. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it is. They because you sat in biology class and you know what a cisgender woman and what a cisgender man's genitals are, you feel like that's a right and a privilege,
Yeah.
and it's not. That is a gift for a trans person to give to you, especially and you certainly need to check yourself if y'all are not in any type of situation where genitals will be uncovered. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's like if you're not trying to fuck me and I'm not trying to fuck you, then why does it matter what I have between my legs? I'm just trying to pay for my goddamn groceries and get home and watch Scandal. Like, it's just that's
Most
just
of the
very
time, I'm thinking about food and not thinking about nobody else.
right. Okay, I get that. And I definitely agree. You see that I've seen that a lot, or people are so people are so bold with that kind of stuff, and it's just like
Exactly.
you need to humble yourself, because you don't you don't have a right to people's bodies. I think that that's a rampant problem in this country. People think that they have a right to have access to people's bodies, especially men.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes across the board. Gay men, straight men, they all feel like we have a right to everybody else's bodies, and that's not the case. Okay, so what other questions?
As far as other questions that I get, oh, do you know that trans person over there? And it'll be somebody who I've never heard of before, and I'm like, mm, do you think I just know all trans people? Like,
Right.
what?
We
I
have
don't
like
get.
like this ain't since eight. We don't all have a psychic link just because we all trans.
Exactly. And I think a lot of the times, I think a lot of the questions I get as a trans woman, I also get as a black woman too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like let's say as far as like with the bodies question go, like I'm a little lighter skinned, and right now because of the winter time, I'm trying to get my tan back, but I'm pale. So I get a lot of questions about, oh, what are you mixed with? Why do you what does that have to do with anything that has gone on? If I tell you I'm black, then just accept that as fact that I'm black.
That
Like we
is
come in different shades, and then
right.
with people who tell me, or like they'll tell me, oh, I've never been with a transgender woman before, but I'd love to experiment and experience. And it's like, or when people tell me, oh, I'm not attracted to transgender people. Well, obviously, like particularly, let's say on a dating app like Tinder,
Mm-hmm.
you're obviously attracted to me in some aspects. So don't say that you're not attracted to me because I'm a transgender person. You're attracted to you're not attracted to the idea of me being transgender, but you're attracted to me as a person. It's the same thing as when people tell me, or when guys just tell me, I'm not really into black girls, but I whatever. Like you're basically saying that you're not attracted to the idea of black people because we come in all different shades and sizes and colors and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
and different backgrounds. So you're saying that you're not attracted to the idea of me being trans, it is bullshit. So obviously you're attracted to transgender people. You're just not attracted to the idea of being trans, and that's
Right.
that's something else that I see a lot online, or you know, people again feeling like they have that access to be so bold and brazen with me.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
See, you guys, you don't know what trans people are out here dealing with. It's a whole lot more than
I'm
just
telling you,
you
dating
know.
as a black woman and then dating as a black trans woman have been two different experiences for me, because there have been times where I haven't put on my profile that I'm transgender, and the messages that I get versus the messages that I get when I do or don't, vice versa, have been very, very interesting.
To say the least, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. I'm constantly having to tell people all the time, that is really none of your business.
Okay, so let's wrap the conversation up with some advice. So, what advice do you have for cisgendered people looking to better understand trans people and issues and the experience?
I, a lot of people say this, and I think that it doesn't necessarily, I don't think it necessarily goes over well with a lot of people for whatever reason, but a lot of times when I have questions about things that I don't necessarily understand, and as far as like social or civil rights or advocacy work, I go to Tumblr. Tumblr kids will answer your damn questions.
Tumblr has a term for everything.
Tumblr has receipts. So I think it was the Read. They said Twitter gets the news first, but Tumblr gets it right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly what it is. Tumblr will have any receipt that you may think that you know. Tumblr has anything that you may think that you didn't know about. They got a word for it. They got a word. What was it that I was looking at the other day? For when you sweep something in the corner and you can't pick it up with the dustpan, I can't even think of the word.
What? Oh my God.
I was like, how did they get that emotion just down? Because there are so many times where I'm sweeping up something and I can't get it on the dustpan because it's in the corner.
Yeah.
That
is funny.
utilize these places, y'all. Utilize social media. I mean, we tend to think of social media as, it's
just jokes.
Exactly, and it's being detrimental to our society. And I was explaining to somebody the other day, things have been going on in society forever. We just now have access to them and more people because of social media. Like when people try
thank you. We
living in our last days. Well, if that's the case, we've been living in our last days for a really long time because these things have been happening for years and centuries and decades and since the beginning of time. But now we are in the age where we have access to people's stories. We literally have doors and windows to parts of people's lives that we would have never been privy to in the years past.
Yeah, I say the same thing. People often mistake, in terms of social media, they often mistake the visibility with things being new. And, like your country grandma say, ain't nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new going on. It's just now more accessible and more visible. But because a lot of people cannot comprehend that, they feel like, oh, social media is ruining dating. And social media, dating has always been trash. Look, and I've said this before. Look at your grandma and your grandpa's relationship. A lot of y'all grandmas went through hell with your grandpas. It ain't no different. It's just that grandma and grandpa didn't have Twitter to be on. Grandma and grandpa didn't have Snapchat and Instagram, but they were going through the same shit. Your grandpa was trash. Or your grandma was trash, or whatever the case may be. Like, nothing is new. It's just more visible.
Somebody's grandma was a hoe because the term was around way before social media. So somebody, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
That's how I always think of it. Like, somebody's, like, they think like, oh, like I work in sexual health. So a lot of times people, like, I get a lot of older people who, like, when I tell people that, they're like, oh, that, that doesn't happen with people in my generation. Well, where do you think that came from? Do y'all just think that just came around in the 2000s? No, chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis have been here for centuries and decades, and people have been affected with it. But now we have more access to people's stories where they are able to tell, and we're able to collect data and different things about people. It's nothing new under the sun, like you said. So,
I think the other thing is people are just lazy. I think this has been probably said on a lot of podcasts, but it's true. People are lazy and they just want to be told. They don't want to have to do the research. They don't want to have to read. They just want someone to tell them. A good example is, and I've been guilty of this too, although I'll say that for a bit. When you get on Twitter and you're like, what happened with such and such? Now, it would be just as easy. Those same keystrokes you could take and put them into Google and click on news, and you could find out and read about what you're talking about. But because we're lazy and we don't want to do that work, we just want someone to spoon feed it to us. And I think it's the same thing with trans issues. We just want people to spoon feed things to us. And again, that is not because of social media. It's just it's prevalent on social media because social media is big.
Exactly.
Okay, so my next question is kind of the same vein, but for members of the community, of the LGBT plus community, how or what advice would you have for them to better understand and be more inclusive of trans people?
Just like when we just it's particularly with black and brown people,
Mm-hmm.
just like when we speak and we want others to shut up and listen, that's what they need to do. Y'all need to we all, not just y'all, not other people who are parts of the LGBT, but everybody just needs to shut up and listen. I think that we tend to think that, especially as black people, we tend to think that we have the copyright on civil rights, and we don't.
Yeah.
We don't. There there are other aspects and intersections of life where civil rights has applied and has been, you know, a big um, has been a big influence on how we navigate and how we are able to, you know, come to where we are as far as the rights that we do have, as far as the little rights that we do have and the ones that are being taken away. So, you know, shut up and listen. That is the best advice I can give to anybody. When somebody tells me something that I don't necessarily understand about and they're willing to educate me, and I don't necessarily have to go to Google because I too am a lazy person and I have been, you know, I have been one of those people who's like, well, what's going on? You know, if someone is willing to give you that, shut up and listen. Just be quiet and just listen carefully. And I think there was something that happened a few years ago that kind of made me realize that I need to shut up more. Was there was this BuzzFeed video, and I don't remember who did it, but there were these white women who dressed up as I wouldn't even say they dressed up as Muslim people. They dressed up in Muslim-like garbs to see what it was like, basically, to be Muslim for a day. And it's like, why, if you just listened, you wouldn't have had to do all that. Like, why is it that
Right.
why is it that when I tell you something, like, it's not believed as fact because you don't think that you, uh, you don't think it's a problem for you, so it's not a problem.
Agreed. My only thing I would add to that is for other people in the community that don't face the gender issues that transgender people do, we need to check our, I hate to use the word privilege, but I guess it applies. But we need to check ourselves and our need to feel like we are superior to someone else, because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's where a lot of the issues within the community come from, because everybody that's oppressed wants to oppress someone because they feel like that is how it's supposed to be, and that's how you prove that you have power.
Mm-hmm.
And so with even within the community, you know, you got whites that want to oppress the blacks, you got, and you have, you know, everyone else, the L and the G and the B oppressing the T, because we have to feel like we're superior to someone.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to stop that. We need to get over it, and we need to do better, because we're in this together. I mean, I know we're lumped together, and maybe it doesn't fit, maybe it does, but it is what it is, and we're not going to get anywhere if we have to constantly fight to prove, or to try to prove that we're superior to someone else.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing with black people with the whole colorism thing. Like, we can't fight as a unified unit if part of us feels like we're better than these black people because they ghetto and we not, or we're better than these black people because we're light skinned and they're not. It's the same thing within this community. You know, just because they are transgender and we're not any better. We need to leave that mindset wherever we found it. Okay, so my last question, and then we'll wrap this part up, is do you have any advice for people who may think, or who may think that they're trans, or they are trans but they're just starting their journey?
I would definitely say, if you are going to Google anything, Google local support groups for yourself. Not necessarily, and if you're not someone, like, I'm not someone who would probably thrive in a support group because of just my personality. Like I tend to like to figure things out on my own and be on my own. But you know what support groups have tend to work with have been um, showing me where I need to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and showing me that there are other people out there like me who who are doing the same things, and are and are running the same roadblocks and same issues. So definitely, if you're going to Google support in your area, because during this conversation, I was telling you earlier, during this conversation, I Googled, I just Googled the word transgender, and all of it was just trash. All the questions they asked on there were just absolute trash. And a lot of the things, particularly, like I said, Tumblr is a really good source for, questions that you may have, because Tumblr is ran by the people for the people. I will say that. Tumblr is definitely made for the people. We definitely have, obviously there's a side of Tumblr that's more corporate and rigid and things like that, because it is a business. But, there are a lot of things out there for people who are questioning or do have questions about themselves that they can get answered on there, because there are literally people behind the screens answering those questions for you. Reach out to those people,
Mm-hmm.
Say, hey, and there are people out there who are willing to educate you, and, give yourself some time, because you're not going to find all the answers that you need in the time that you need it.
Yeah.
And that's why I said my schooling life this week was giving myself some time, because I'm not going to have everything I need when I need it, but I will get it when I'm supposed to get it.
Yes, indeed. Okay. I like that. Give yourself some time. That can apply in a lot of different ways.
I think so. And I think particularly as trans women, we tend to put ourselves on this rigid clock of, oh, I have to look this way before before this happens, or I have to look this way because the older I get, the more I'm going to look like this and things like that. And yes, that is a very valid fear and concern that we as trans women have. However, you still need to give yourself that time, because rushing ain't going to do nothing but give you something that ain't for you, and it's going to mess you up.
Mm-hmm. Say that.
I'm
All right.
They don't hear me.
They don't hear you though. I agree. All right. I think that wraps up our "What's the Tea" conversation. Shout out to you for coming up with that name.
I'm telling you, I'm just a reflection of what I'm getting.
All right. So, as I told you earlier, I like to wrap up the show when I have guests with the Queer Query section, so that the listeners can get a different feel for the guest outside of just the conversations that we had. So, I have I have a few questions for the Queer Query, and then we'll wrap it up and we'll get out of here.
All right.
All right. So the first question: would you rather have unlimited disposable income or the power to manipulate every aspect of reality?
Ooh, that I probably want the limited disposable income, because that reality, it just seems like a lot of responsibility, and I'm not willing to put that all on myself.
Oh,
That's a lot of added stress.
I hadn't thought of it that way. I was thinking immediately. I'm like, give me the reality, because then I can manipulate all you hateful bitches the hell up out of here. But you're right. Then I mess.
Child, as long as I'm able to spend this money, they kiss my ass.
Right. But now you got me thinking. I'm like, okay, but if I did that, am I gonna end up like Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen, and I be done fucked up and all these beings, everybody dead because, of some choice? You're right. Give me the money. Give me the money. I can go buy me an island, and I can be on my own if I choose, or with my closest friends and loved ones, and we can, as to the best of our ability, drown out the rest, because we got the money to do that. We can have anything shipped to us that we want. Money is not an object. So you changed my mind on that one. You show right.
I don't want
that. Show right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. The next question: what would your mixtape be called? What would the theme be? And how would the cover look?
Whew. That is okay. I don't think I've ever thought about that. Like if I had a mixtape, what would it be called? Revelations to the T.
Come on.
All right.
Yes. Yes.
Revelations to the T.
I
My
like
mix,
that.
the cover would be. Uh, I don't know. I want like a bad bitch cover though, because I'm
Yeah.
all about aesthetics. So I would want like a super bad bitch cover where I'm just like giving you Trina circa what was that, the baddest album where I'm on the top of a nigga trying to give him trying to resuscitate him
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
I didn't took all his life.
Oh, come on.
And
Yes.
what was the last part of the question?
What would the theme of your mixtape be?
The theme of my mixtape would be time. Again, coming full circle, time.
Mm-hmm.
Finding ways to give yourself time. I'm trying to think, but like I'm trying to bring it like back to trap because that's what I love trap music. So I'm trying to figure out a way, but I don't think there's a way I could do that. But I would
I mean,
definitely
you can
say,
still do your songs about time over a trap beat.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I would definitely have to get my conscious trap on.
Oh, yeah, I like that term.
Conscious trap. That's what the theme of my tape would be. Conscious
Okay.
trap.
Let me see. What would my mixtape be called? Let me see. I know the cover. The cover would be a play on Two-Face from Batman because, I would play up the whole Gemini trope. So
Mm-hmm.
on one side I would have the angelic side of me, and on the other side I would have the, satanic side of, whatever people say about Geminis. That's
I
false.
mean, it's all true, but
No, it ain't. It ain't. We ain't gonna do that. Not on this show.
not Gemini slander.
Not on this Gemini ass show. No, ma'am. So that would be the cover. The theme would be, I think the theme would just be my life, and some of the struggles that I've gone through and the triumphs. I may even do a type of thing where it's like split up. So the first half of it would be the trials and tribulations, and then the second half would be the triumphs.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Okay.
might even be the title of the mixtape, Trials and Triumphs.
Okay.
And then, I'll have trials will be over the satanic side on the cover, and then triumphs will be over the angelic side.
Why is this high key giving me like a Mary J. Blige kind of feel right now? No more drama.
No more drama in my life. No more
Right?
Kendu in my life. Listen, Kendu just
Kendu needs to Ken Dong. He needs to be Ken Dong. That's what he needs to be.
yes. Kendu should have been Ken Don't, but he
Right?
did, and now he need to be Ken Gone. Okay, next question. What's one of your biggest pet peeves?
One of my biggest pet peeves. Now, can this be a petty pet peeve or can it be like,
Yeah, it can be petty.
I guess one of my biggest pet peeves would be people. Oh no, you know what? I'm gonna make this very specific because this is one of my biggest pet peeves. When you be at the store
Hmm.
and you with your friends or whatever, and it's like when I'm at the store with my friends or when I'm out with my friends at restaurants, and if they don't got it, girl, look, as long as you didn't go crazy, I got you for it. But when you want to become a mathematician once the bill comes, when you got a whole like, girl,
When
if
you
they just
turn
got
into Katherine Johnson when the bill comes, your ass is
exactly,
doing the
girl. If
hidden
they just got a
figures.
$15 thing and they can't afford the $15, girl, but they want to come out and have a good time. I mean, as long as they're not doing too much, girl, I'm gonna just pay the $15 and call it a day, girl. And people who don't tip, whew, that's a pet peeve of mine. In relation to that, people who do not tip. Oh, I was out with my family the other day, and my sister left a shitty tip on a $72 bill, and I wanted to invert her knees.
Oh, Ooh. True,
Yeah.
true. Let's see. So I think I have two. So one of my biggest pet peeves is people who refuse to get out of the fast lane on the freeway when
Mm.
they are driving slow as fuck. Like, I get it if it's a bunch of cars and 18 wheelers and stuff, and you might be going a little bit faster than them. But once you get past that and you see that I'm on your bumper, bitch, get the fuck over. Get out of the
Right?
fast lane. This is not the lane for you.
Obviously, you don't got nowhere to be like I do.
Right. Or you scared to drive. Either way, none of that is my business or my problem. What you need to do is remove yourself from my path. And that happens every day on my way to work. I'm just like, why do y'all refuse to get out of the fast lane?
Right.
Like, why? You in this damn Saturn going 58 miles an hour, get your ass out of the way. And my other pet peeve, and I think someone may have said this on another my friend's podcast, Getting Grown. People who are all up on you at the grocery store when you trying to pay.
Oh,
Like,
Lord.
now see, I'm trying to put in my PIN number, right? And you all up on me, and see, this is my private time to put in my PIN number and pay my monies for my groceries. And see, if I turn around and I supply you with this elbow because you all in my personal space, then I would be wrong, and they would be trying to kick me out the Kroger and ban me and call the police and shit. But you pulling up to my bumper. Why? Let me finish paying for my motherfucking groceries. Like, the cashier is not going anywhere. The belt is not moving, and I'm not going anywhere until I finish paying.
At that point, I'm gonna assume that you want to pay for my groceries.
Right. You know, I think I've turned around before and be like, can you back up? And they look, and it's usually a white person. And they looking at you
Yeah,
like
white people have no sense of
no sense of personal space and boundaries. Like,
yeah, go to Trader Joe's. There you go.
back the fuck up. Because you don't want my black ass hounding you and looking all over your shoulder and shit when you putting in your goddamn PIN number. But back the fuck up. So yeah, so those are my pet peeves. Okay, so I have one more question. It's a wild card. It's fuck, marry, kill, and I just like this because I just found it so fascinating how people minds work with this game. Even though it's kind of lame and whatever, I like it. So fuck, marry, kill, and this is the what's the T version.
Oh, Lord.
So, fuck, marry, kill. Trayvonte Rhodes, Trey Songz, Terry Crews.
Oh, I would definitely.
I can go first because mine is easy.
Yeah, you go first.
I'm marrying Trayvonte.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fucking Trey. And sorry, Terry, I love you and your juking ass, your big muscular juking ass, but I'm gonna have to kill you.
I think I'm gonna agree with you and marry Trevante.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Lord, and I'm praying for my spirit at this point, but I'm definitely gonna have to marry Trevante, fuck Terry Crews, and kill Trey Songz because Trey Songz irritates me to no. And I even wrote a letter back in the. So there was like a friend of someone who I'm friends with on Facebook and someone who I kind of have like a friendly relationship with named Miss Gia. She had a website called Miss. Yeah, hey Gia. She had a website called Miss Gia, and I remember she would give people a space to write letters to celebrities, like basically telling them how they really feel about them. And I wrote a letter to Trey Songz after he did this interview where he just refused to move his glasses, and I'm just like, I'm over it. I literally cannot. I can't deal with guys who feel themselves way too much. Mm-hmm. Trayvonte is bae always because number one, his skin is just. I just want to go swimming in it.
Listen, and that smile. Oh my God.
You know, I switch. I would marry Terry and fuck Trayvonte because I don't know enough about his personality, but Terry Crews seems like he's really funny and fun.
No, fuck that. I need to be able to fuck Trayvonte for the rest of both of our lives. So we getting married up in this bitch. We getting hitched. You stuck with me. Ain't no prenup bid. Ain't no divorce bid.
You stuck with me.
That's it. All right. I think that wraps up the show. Lyric, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. I think that this conversation was amazing. I'm so happy that we were finally able to do this. Yes. And I hope that you will come back in the future, so we can have a conversation about something that's not transcentric.
I'm definitely down. I love this conversation. Just seemed to kind of flow so naturally.
Yeah, it really did. I'm a little surprised, and I'm looking at the time like we've been bumping our damn gums for an hour and a half. Who the hell we think we are to read? So tell the people where they can find you.
Okay, so again, most websites have me as InfamousBelle, InfamousBelle, on most social media. The only thing is toenail biting ass, pickle pig, feet eating ass Twitter won't let me get my name back as InfamousBelle. So you have to find me on there as Capricorn Butte, which is CapricornBeaute. And that's my at name on there.
Okay, yeah, I'll have that in the show notes.
But yeah, most of the time you can find me as InfamousBelle on most websites.
Okay.
And also, I have some things coming up. I'm actually doing a speech next month locally here. I don't know if anyone else can have access to it, but locally, I'm going to be on a panel of people, and I'm going to be speaking specifically from Black trans woman experience for the ANI Women March that we are having here next month, which is a march specifically for Black women.
Oh, I am so here for it. I hope that there's some kind of video feed so I can watch.
Some kind of, cast or something. I need it to be. I'm gonna see about getting it. I'm gonna see what we can do to get that.
Even if it's like uploaded to YouTube, at a later date or something, because that I'm already here for it. I'm here for it. Thank you for that, you guys. You know where to find me. I'm Trillificent pretty much everywhere: Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr. Make sure that you guys are also checking out the Sounds of the Stories playlist on SoundCloud. And again, if you guys have any show topics that you want me to cover, if there's anybody out there that wants to collaborate with me, or if you just want to talk, or if you have, a tale from the Jack side that you want to talk about, if you have like a coming out story, any of that stuff, you guys, this show is for everybody under the rainbow. Like I said, I know that it's been gay centric, but time and scheduling and everything. But as you see, like I said, this is for everyone. So feel free to email that stuff to GaysideStories@gmail.com. And with that, thank you for listening. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for sharing. Everyone, all the other podcasts that are supportive of me and just supportive of podcasting in general. Shout out to all of you. I see you. I try to retweet and repost and like and all that kind of stuff. I listen to your shows, and I want to thank you for supporting me and my show and listening to me talk about whatever the hell I'm talking about. Share this podcast with someone, you guys. Share it. That's how we grow. Again, sharing and leaving those reviews on iTunes, because iTunes is still the biggest podcast repository out there, and that's what people look at.
I know that's the first thing I go look at. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah, I listen to all of my podcasts on the Apple Podcast app, even though it sucks, just because I like one-stop shopping.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you guys for the support, and as always, make sure that you're protecting all of your walls, or as Celie told you, they will crumble.
All walls matter.
Unless they are loose. We out. Bye, y'all.
Bye.